Understanding Translations, Lesson 17, Example number 2. Show that trapezoid ABCD and its image after a translation are congruent. Well, to really do this the real way, I would have to give you a protractor and a ruler, and you would have to find the measurement of each angle, you'd have to find the length of each side, and then we would move on from there. Well, since we're not in the classroom together, and because it's just not feasible for us to do that at the moment, I already wrote the measurements down for both. So right now, take a moment, pause the video, and get all your measurements and your side lengths, your angle measurements, your side lengths, get everything written down. Now remember, this box in the corners here, the boxes in the corners, that means that those angles are 90 degrees. So go ahead and write that down. Okay, now we want to prove that they are congruent. Well, in order to prove that the figures are congruent, we have to prove that all corresponding parts are congruent. To prove that all corresponding parts are congruent, first we're going to have to prove that all the angles are congruent, and then we're going to have to prove that all the corresponding sides are congruent. Again, to prove that all corresponding parts are congruent, first we'll have to prove that all corresponding angles are congruent and all corresponding sides are congruent. So we're going to start with all the angles. Now guys, this is a lot of writing, but I'm doing it with you. And we're going to do this on example 2 and example 3, and we won't do it for example 4 and 5, even though it does ask us to do that. Okay, so let's start with the angles. So let's start with angle A. Angle A and angle A prime both measure 90 degrees. So what you would write is the measure of angle A equals the measure of angle A prime, which equals 90 degrees. Put a comma. Since the angle measurements are equal, I can say that the figures are congruent. So angle A, put therefore. Therefore, angle A is congruent to angle A prime. Let's move on to angle B. The measure of angle B equals the measure of angle B prime, and they both measure 138 degrees. Therefore, since their measurements are equal, I can say the figures are congruent. So angle B is congruent to angle B prime. Let's look at angle C and C prime. Both angles measure 42 degrees. So the measure of angle C equals the measure of angle C prime, and both equal 42 degrees. Therefore, angle C is congruent to angle C prime. Angle D. The measure of angle D equals the measure of angle D prime, which equals 90 degrees. Because their measurements are equal, I could say the figures are congruent. So therefore, angle D is congruent to angle D prime. Please make sure you write this down exactly like I do. We are going to be doing this on worksheets and other things, so please make sure you're writing this down. Now, I put the lines on there just to help me keep things straight. You don't have to, but it does really help keep you organized if you do. Okay, so what we did there is we proved that all the corresponding angles are congruent. All corresponding angles are congruent. So let's now move to the sides. Angle A and side AB and side A prime B prime. So the length of AB equals the length of A prime B prime, which equals 23 millimeters. Therefore, AB is congruent to A prime B prime. Don't forget to put those lines above. So now we'll do BC. Side BC equals the length of side BC equals the length of B prime C prime, which equals 35 millimeters. Since their lengths are equal, their measurements are equal, I can say the figures are congruent. So side BC is congruent to side B prime C prime. Now we'll do CD. The length of CD equals the length of C prime D prime, both equal 50 millimeters. Therefore, the sides are congruent. So CD is congruent to C prime D prime. Last but not least, you could either say AD or DA. Because I'm going around the figure AB, BC, CD, I'm going to say DA. You could do it either way, AD or DA. I'm going to do DA. So DA, the length of DA equals the length of D prime A prime, which equals 23 millimeters. Therefore, side DA is congruent to side D prime A prime. Now, what we have done, we have proved that all the corresponding angles are congruent. We've proved that all the corresponding sides are congruent. Therefore, we have proved that all corresponding parts are congruent. And if all corresponding parts are congruent, then trapezoid ABCD is congruent to trapezoid A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime. So again, all corresponding parts are congruent. Therefore, trapezoid ABCD is congruent to trapezoid A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime. If you have any questions on example 2, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you.